Desert Awakening. The twin suns of planet Varenth beat mercilessly down on Ethan Wells as he trudged through the shifting sands of the Crimson Desert. His rugged survival suit was designed to withstand extreme temperatures, but even it struggled against the relentless heat that seemed to seep into his bones. The ancient ruins of the long-lost civilization sprawled before him like a mirage, crystalline spires half buried in centuries of sand whispered tales of a time long forgotten. Another dead end, Ethan muttered under his breath, wiping sweat from his brow. He adjusted the strap of his satchel filled with tools and gadgets he had collected over years of treasure hunting. Glancing at his handheld scanner, he frowned at its persistent beeping, a signal that had become all too familiar yet rarely yielded anything worthwhile. "What now?" he grumbled as he squinted at the holographic display flickering erratically before him. The scanner indicated an anomalous reading approximately 2 meters below the surface. Most days, he would have ignored it, however, something about this signal felt different, it pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. "All right then," he sighed deeply, deploying his portable excavation unit with a resigned determination. "Might as well check it out before this hellhole cooks me alive." The excavator hummed to life, its focused sonic waves dispersing the sand in precise layers as Ethan worked diligently for 20 minutes. Just as he was about to give up hope, his breath caught in his throat at what lay before him, a perfectly preserved chamber revealed by his efforts. There, lying motionless amidst the ruins, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen, a woman with skin that gleamed like polished amethyst under the harsh sunlight. Her long wavy hair cascaded around her shoulders like dark silk, framing her delicate features that seemed almost ethereal in their beauty. Ethan's heart raced as he approached her cautiously. She was dressed in a sleek black bodysuit that hinted at both function and elegance. But his excitement quickly turned to dread when his medical scanner confirmed what he feared: no heartbeat. "Damn it," he whispered to himself as panic set in. He had heard stories of humanoid species capable of surviving clinical death for hours due to unique biological adaptations, however, this woman looked too still for comfort. Taking a deep breath, he reached for his emergency medkit. An adrenaline compound designed for humanoid physiologies lay nestled within its protective case. He had never used it before but felt an inexplicable urge to try it now. "Here goes nothing," he murmured as he positioned the injection device over her heart. "Please don't let this be a mistake." With a swift motion, he plunged the needle home and waited agonizingly for what felt like an eternity. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm him, her back arched suddenly, her eyes flew open, deep pools of indigo that locked onto his own. She gasped for air, drawing in desperate breaths as Ethan instinctively supported her trembling frame. "Easy there," he soothed gently, "you're safe now." Confusion flickered across her features as she focused on him. When she finally spoke, her voice was both melodious and rough from disuse. You brought me back." Guilty as charged, Ethan replied with a crooked smile that belied the tension in his chest. "But I'd love to hear how you ended up buried in an ancient ruin." "I was running from them," she said shakily as she attempted to stand but swayed dangerously on her feet. "The Crimson Syndicate. I thought I found shelter from a sandstorm." Ethan caught her effortlessly before she could fall again. There was something about how perfectly she fit against him that sent an unexpected warmth through his chest despite the scorching heat surrounding them. "Careful," he said softly while lifting her into his arms with surprising ease. "Let's get you somewhere safe first, my ship's not far." "Thank you," she whispered against him as they moved swiftly through the ruins toward his vessel, a sleek craft known as the Horizon's Edge. As they approached the ship's entrance, she leaned into him slightly. Ethan felt an inexplicable connection forming between them that transcended mere survival instincts. "Home sweet home," he joked lightly while palming the entry scanner. "It's not much but it's got character." The ship's interior was practical yet comfortable, an eclectic mix of human engineering and personal touches that spoke volumes about its pilot's adventurous spirit. As Lyra took in her surroundings with wide eyes filled with wonderment, Ethan couldn't help but feel proud of what he had built over years of hard work. Your technology is so different, she mused softly while trailing her fingers over worn leather upholstery. Rugged and reliable, just like me, Ethan replied with a playful grin that made her laugh softly. It was music to his ears amidst their dire circumstances. Once inside the med bay, Ethan initiated a diagnostic scan on Lyra while she settled onto the examination table. Curiosity danced in her eyes as she observed him work. Her biology fascinated him. The scan revealed trace elements of crystalline structures within her skin that explained both its beautiful hue and her remarkable ability to survive temporary death states. Your heart, he started hesitantly while watching the holographic display illuminate their findings. It's actually 3 separate chambers working together. Lyra met his gaze with an intensity that made his heart race even faster than before. There was something captivating about her presence that left him utterly spellbound. You find alien anatomy beautiful? She asked softly. I find lots of things beautiful, Ethan replied honestly before clearing his throat awkwardly at how easily they slipped into intimate territory despite their circumstances. Just then, an alarm blared throughout the ship, a warning siren that shattered their moment of connection into fragments scattered across reality like glass shards. What's happening? Lyra asked urgently as Ethan cursed under his breath while rushing toward the bridge with her close behind him. As they reached the cockpit together, adrenaline surged through Ethan's veins when he saw what awaited them on radar, a sleek predatory vessel closing in fast, a ship belonging to none other than Commander Zarek himself. It looks like your friend found us, Ethan growled while dropping into the pilot's seat and strapping himself in tight against impending danger ahead. He's not my friend. Lyra shot back defiantly while buckling herself into the co-pilot's chair beside him. Determination etched across her features made him admire her strength even more amidst chaos swirling around them. Ethan fired up the Horizon's Edge engines just as energy bolts began peppering the sand around them, each blast sending plumes of dust into the air like angry specters rising from below ground level. Hold on tight, he shouted over roaring engines while plotting their escape route through treacherous terrain ahead. The storm belt looming ominously on the horizon promised perilous winds and swirling chaos beyond comprehension for any ordinary pilot daring enough to venture within its grasp. As they shot forward into danger itself, the ship bucked violently against fierce gusts threatening to tear them apart. Ethan focused intently on navigating through blinding sandstorms while keeping one eye trained firmly behind them at pursuing foes hot on their trail who wouldn't give up easily without bloodshed first. You're amazing. Lyra breathed beside him amid turbulence shaking the Horizon's Edge violently. Awe filled every word spoken between them like electricity crackling through air surrounding them both now caught up within fate's grasp together. I've got plenty more tricks up my sleeve if you stick around. Ethan grinned confidently despite mounting tension surrounding them both now racing toward uncertain futures ahead. The pursuit. Ethan's heart raced as he maneuvered the Horizon's Edge through the tumultuous winds of the Crimson Desert. Lyra sat beside him, her indigo eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. The ship rattled violently as energy blasts from Commander Zarek's vessel lit up the sky behind them. He could see the sleek silhouette of Zarek's ship gaining ground, its engines roaring with ferocious intent. Hold on tight. Ethan shouted over the cacophony of alarms and the whirring of machinery. He gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white as he fought to keep the ship steady against the fierce gusts. Lyra's presence beside him was both a comfort and a distraction. He couldn't shake the feeling that their fates were intertwined in ways he had yet to understand. Can you do anything? Lyra asked, her voice strained but resolute. I can help if you give me a chance. Ethan glanced at her, noting the fierce determination etched across her features. What do you mean? How can you help? I have abilities, she replied, her gaze shifting to the viewport as Zarek's ship loomed closer. I can manipulate energy fields, but I need to focus. Then focus. Ethan urged, his heart pounding in his chest. We need every advantage we can get. As he deftly navigated through the storm, Lyra closed her eyes, her brow furrowing in concentration. Ethan watched in awe as a faint glow began to emanate from her hands, illuminating the cockpit with a soft blue light. The air around them seemed to crackle with energy, and Ethan felt an unfamiliar sensation wash over him, a mix of warmth and power. Now! Lyra shouted suddenly, her voice cutting through the roar of the engines. Push forward. I'll create a shield. Ethan didn't hesitate, he throttled up the engines, feeling the ship surge forward as Lyra's energy enveloped them in a shimmering barrier. The ship jolted violently as Zarek's blasts collided with their shield, but they held firm. Keep going. Lyra urged, her focus unwavering as she maintained the shield against the onslaught. We need to reach the canyon ahead. Ethan nodded, his eyes locked on their destination, a narrow canyon that promised temporary refuge from their pursuers. He could see it in the distance, its rocky walls rising like sentinels against the desert landscape. Just as they approached the canyon entrance, Zarek's ship fired another round of energy blasts. This time, however, Lyra's shield absorbed the impact, sending ripples of energy cascading outward like waves in a pond. We're almost there. Ethan shouted triumphantly as they zipped into the canyon's mouth. The rocky walls closed in around them, providing a momentary reprieve from their relentless pursuers. As they navigated deeper into the canyon, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with relief. They had made it, at least for now. But he knew it wouldn't be long before Zarek would find another way to track them down. Are you all right? Ethan asked, glancing at Lyra who was breathing heavily from exertion. I will be, she replied breathlessly. But we need to regroup and figure out our next move. Ethan nodded in agreement as they continued through the winding passages of the canyon. The walls were lined with strange markings that pulsed softly in response to their presence, an ancient language that seemed to resonate with Lyra's energy. What are those markings? Lyra asked curiously, her eyes scanning their surroundings. I'm not sure, Ethan admitted. They look like some kind of script or symbols from an ancient civilization. As they ventured further into the canyon, they stumbled upon a hidden alcove illuminated by bioluminescent plants that thrived in this sheltered environment. It felt like stepping into another world, a sanctuary amidst chaos. This place is beautiful, Lyra whispered, awestruck by the vibrant colors surrounding them. Ethan smiled at her wonderment. It was refreshing to see someone so captivated by something so simple yet extraordinary amidst their dire situation. It seems like we found a temporary hideout. Lyra took a deep breath and leaned against one of the glowing plants, allowing herself a moment to recover. We should set up a plan while we have some time. Agreed, Ethan replied as he pulled out his portable holomap and activated it above them. The map projected a 3D layout of their surroundings along with Zarek's last known position. We need to find out what Zarek wants with you, Ethan said thoughtfully while tracing his finger over various routes on the map. If we can understand his motives, we might be able to outsmart him. Lyra nodded slowly, her expression serious. He believes I possess something valuable, something that could change everything for my people. What do you mean? Ethan pressed for more information. I'm part of an ancient lineage, she explained hesitantly. My ancestors were guardians of powerful artifacts that could harness energy from celestial bodies, artifacts that Zarek wants for himself. Ethan's brow furrowed in concern as he considered what this meant for them both. So he's after you because you're connected to these artifacts? Yes, Lyra confirmed with a nod. And if he gets his hands on them, it could spell disaster not just for my people but for countless others across this galaxy. Ethan felt a weight settle in his chest. This was no longer just about survival, it was about protecting something far greater than themselves. We need to find those artifacts before Zarek does, he declared resolutely. But how? Lyra asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. We'll have to gather information, Ethan suggested, determination igniting within him once more. If we can locate allies or resources that can help us understand where these artifacts are hidden. Lyra interrupted him with an excited spark in her eyes. I know someone who might be able to help. An old friend who has connections throughout this sector. Then let's reach out to them, Ethan urged as adrenaline surged through him again at this newfound hope. Lyra took a deep breath and closed her eyes momentarily before focusing on channeling her energy once more. She reached out mentally toward her friend, a telepathic connection that allowed her thoughts to travel across vast distances. As she concentrated deeply, Ethan kept watch for any signs of danger outside their sanctuary. Moments later, Lyra opened her eyes wide with excitement. "I've made contact," she exclaimed breathlessly. "They're willing to meet us at an abandoned outpost not far from here." "Perfect. Let's move before Zarek catches up," Ethan said quickly as they gathered their gear and prepared for departure. With renewed purpose fueling their every step, the two unlikely allies ventured back into the winding passages of the canyon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Secrets unveiled. The dimly lit room hummed with a low, ambient noise as the artificial sunset cast warm hues across the walls. Terrence Drake stood behind Kyra, his hands resting lightly on her waist, feeling the warmth radiate from her body. The tension that had been building since their escape now simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. "Free to want, to choose," Kyra murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Terrence could feel her heartbeat quicken as he leaned closer, his breath mingling with hers. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them suspended in this moment. "Isn't that what we all want?" Terrence replied softly, his voice low and intimate. "To be seen for who we truly are." Kyra turned to face him, her eyes shimmering with unspoken emotions. "You see me, Terrence. Not just as a prize or a possession." Her fingers traced his jawline gently, sending shivers down his spine. "That means more to me than you know." Before he could respond, a sudden noise broke their moment, a loud thud against the door followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps echoing in the corridor outside. The reality of their situation crashed back in like a cold wave. "Zarek's men," Terrence said, pulling away reluctantly. "We need to move." Kyra nodded, her expression shifting from warmth to urgency as she stepped back and surveyed the room. "We can't stay here, they'll find us." "Let's check the back exit," Terrence suggested, leading her toward a small door hidden behind a curtain. He opened it cautiously, revealing a narrow passageway that led deeper into the station's infrastructure. As they slipped into the corridor, Terrence felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. The stakes were higher than ever now. They were not just fighting for their lives but for something much more significant, their freedom and autonomy. "Where does this lead?" Kyra asked, glancing back at him with concern. "Should lead us to the maintenance levels," he replied, keeping his voice steady despite the urgency of their situation. "From there, we can find an access point to the lower levels and hopefully lose Zarek's men in the market district." They moved quickly through the darkened passageway, their footsteps echoing softly against the metal floor. The air was thick with tension as they navigated through tight corners and dimly lit areas that felt increasingly claustrophobic. "What are we going to do once we reach the market district?" Kyra asked as they paused briefly to catch their breath. "We'll find somewhere safe to lay low," Terrence replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Maybe even contact some allies who can help us take down Zarek and get you out of this mess for good." Kyra looked at him intently, her expression serious. "You're willing to fight for me? For my freedom?" "Of course," he said without hesitation. "You deserve that chance, everyone does." She smiled softly at him then, a mixture of gratitude and admiration shining in her eyes. "You're different from anyone I've ever met." Terrence felt heat rise in his cheeks at her words. He was just a guy trying to survive in a galaxy filled with danger and deceit. But in that moment, he realized how much he wanted to protect her, not just because of their shared experience but because of who she was. They pressed on through the narrow corridors until they reached an access hatch leading into one of the bustling market district's service entrances. Terrence pushed it open cautiously and peered out into the vibrant chaos beyond. The market district was alive with activity, vendors hawking exotic wares from every corner of the galaxy while patrons haggled over prices amidst colorful displays of bioluminescent fruits and shimmering fabrics. It was a stark contrast to their tense escape moments before. Now what? Kyra asked as they stepped out into the thrumming heart of the market. Blend in, Terence instructed as he scanned their surroundings for any signs of Zarek's men. We need to act casual until we can find a safe place. They moved through the crowd together, adopting an easy pace that masked their urgency. Terence kept close to Kyra, acutely aware of how natural it felt to be near her despite everything swirling around them. I know a place, Kyra said suddenly, grabbing his arm and steering him toward a narrow alleyway lined with stalls selling various trinkets and gadgets. What kind of place? Terence asked warily. A friend's shop. He specializes in rare artifacts and has connections throughout this sector, she explained as they ducked into an alcove filled with shimmering crystals that caught the light beautifully. As they entered the shop, a small but cozy space filled with curiosities from across the galaxy, Terence felt a sense of relief wash over him. Here they could gather information without drawing too much attention. Rico. Kyra called out as she approached a stocky figure behind the counter who was busy arranging various items on display. The man looked up with surprise before breaking into a wide grin. Kyra. It's been ages. What brings you back here? We need your help, she said urgently as Terence joined her side. Rico's expression shifted from joviality to concern as he noticed Terence's tense posture and Kyra's anxious demeanor. What's going on? Zarek is after us, Kyra explained quickly. He wants me back, and I can't let that happen. Rico nodded knowingly. He had seen enough trouble in his time running this shop to recognize danger when it appeared at his doorstep. You're safe here for now, he assured them both before glancing around cautiously. But we need to act fast. What do you suggest? Terence asked as he leaned closer to Rico. There's an old transport shuttle docked nearby, one I've been keeping under wraps for situations like this, Rico replied. It'll get you off station if Zarek comes looking. That sounds perfect. Kyra exclaimed with relief. But it won't be easy getting there, Rico warned, his tone serious again. Zarek has eyes everywhere, you'll need a distraction if you want to slip past undetected. Terence exchanged glances with Kyra. They both understood what that meant. Risking everything for freedom was never without its dangers. I'll create a diversion, Rico offered decisively after sensing their hesitation. Just give me enough time to get you clear. Are you sure? Terence asked incredulously. He didn't want anyone else getting hurt because of them. I've dealt with Zarek before, I know how he operates, Rico replied confidently. Trust me on this. With no time left for debate, they quickly formulated a plan while Rico prepared for his role in creating chaos among Zarek's men lurking outside. As they moved toward an exit at the back of the shop, readying themselves for what lay ahead, Terence couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense of gratitude toward Kyra and Rico alike. Both had shown immense courage when faced with impossible odds. Stay close, Terence instructed firmly as they slipped out into another bustling street filled with vendors shouting out prices while colorful holograms danced overhead advertising various wares available for sale. With every step closer toward freedom, the bond between them grew stronger, united by shared purpose amidst uncertainty awaiting them all. Allies and enemies. The dim light of the hotel room cast soft shadows on the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere that enveloped Terence and Kyra. As they stood together, the weight of their circumstances hung in the air, yet there was a palpable sense of connection that transcended their predicament. Are you sure about this? Terence asked softly, his hands resting gently on Kyra's shoulders. I mean, we're still in danger. Kyra turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and vulnerability. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You've shown me kindness when I expected none. I want to fight back against Zarek and reclaim my freedom. Terence felt a rush of admiration for her bravery. Then we'll do this together, he promised, his voice steady. But we need a solid plan. We can't just run blindly into danger. Kyra nodded, her expression serious as she stepped away to gather her thoughts. Rico mentioned allies who could help us, people who are also against Zarek's tyranny. If we can reach them, we might stand a chance. Let's not waste any time, Terrence agreed, moving toward the door. Do you have a way to contact them? I do, she replied, pulling out a small device from her pocket, a communication unit that looked like a simple wristband but held advanced technology capable of sending encrypted messages across vast distances. As Kyra activated the device, Terrence peered out the window, scanning the market district below for any signs of Zarek's enforcers. The streets were bustling with activity, merchants called out to potential customers while colorful holographic advertisements flickered overhead. Who should we contact first? Terrence asked, turning back to Kyra as she focused intently on the device. There's an old friend named Jax, she said, her fingers flying over the screen as she composed a message. He runs a salvage operation nearby and has connections with various factions who oppose Zarek. Send him a message, Terrence urged, his heart racing at the thought of reaching out for help. The sooner we get allies on our side, the better. Kyra nodded and pressed send, her expression shifting from concentration to hopefulness as she awaited a response. They stood together in silence for a moment, both acutely aware of how much was at stake. Just then, the device beeped softly, indicating an incoming message. Kyra's eyes lit up as she read it aloud, Jack's here. What's going on? You sound urgent. We're in trouble, Kyra replied quickly as she typed back. Zarek is after me and has eyes everywhere. We need your help to get out of this mess safely. Terrence watched her fingers move with practiced ease, he could see how much trust she placed in Jax. After a few tense moments, another message came through, meet me at the old warehouse by the docks in 1 hour. I'll bring backup. Perfect. Kyra exclaimed, relief washing over her features. Let's get moving then, Terrence said decisively as he grabbed his satchel filled with essentials and slung it over his shoulder. They slipped out of the hotel room cautiously, keeping low as they navigated through the service corridors toward the exit that led back into the market district. The bustling atmosphere was both reassuring and nerve-wracking, they had to remain inconspicuous while avoiding Zarek's men. As they made their way through the crowd, Terrence couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced around frequently, his instincts honed from years of navigating dangerous situations telling him something was off. Stay close, he whispered to Kyra as they approached an alleyway that would lead them toward the docks. I will, she replied softly, her hand brushing against his arm, a small gesture that sent warmth coursing through him amidst their perilous journey. They turned into the alleyway and began walking quickly but quietly, every sound seemed amplified in their heightened state of awareness. The faint hum of distant machinery mixed with voices echoing off the walls created an almost surreal atmosphere. Suddenly, Terrence stopped dead in his tracks as he spotted two figures blocking their path, Zarek's enforcers, unmistakable in their imposing stature and cybernetic enhancements. Looks like we've got company, he muttered under his breath. What do we do? Kyra asked urgently, her eyes wide with fear. Terrence scanned their surroundings for an escape route, they were cornered but not without options. We need to create a distraction, something to draw their attention away from us. I can use my energy manipulation, Kyra suggested quickly. If I can create an illusion or some sort of diversion. Do it. Terrence urged as he took a step back to give her space. With determination etched across her face, Kyra closed her eyes and concentrated deeply. A moment later, a shimmering light enveloped her hands before expanding outward into a brilliant display of colors that danced along the walls of the alleyway. The enforcers turned at once, drawn by the spectacle unfolding before them, an illusionary projection of vibrant creatures flitting about like fireflies in a darkened sky. Now! Terrence shouted as he seized the opportunity and pulled Kyra along with him down another side alley while Zarek's men were distracted by her dazzling display. They sprinted through narrow passages lined with crates and debris until they reached an open area near the docks where old ships lay abandoned, perfect for hiding or making quick escapes. Breathless from their sprinting but fueled by adrenaline, they ducked behind one of the larger vessels and took a moment to catch their breath. "That was amazing!" Terrence exclaimed breathlessly as he looked at Kyra with admiration shining in his eyes. "You really know how to create chaos." Kyra smiled shyly at his praise but quickly shifted back to seriousness. "We need to keep moving before they regroup." "Right," Terrence agreed as he gestured toward an old cargo ship docked nearby, the perfect place for them to lay low until Jax arrived. They approached cautiously. Terrence peered inside first before giving Kyra a nod that it was clear. The interior was dusty but spacious enough for them to hide without drawing attention. As they settled into their hiding spot within the cargo hold, leaning against crates filled with forgotten treasures, Terrence couldn't help but feel grateful for having met Kyra amidst all this chaos. "You're incredible," he said softly after a moment of silence between them, the weight of everything pressing down on them yet somehow feeling lighter in each other's presence. Kyra blushed slightly at his compliment but maintained eye contact. There was something undeniably electric about this connection between them, a bond forged through shared danger and vulnerability that felt unbreakable despite outside forces threatening to tear them apart. Just then, Terrence's communicator buzzed softly, a message from Jax indicating that he had arrived at their rendezvous point. "He's here!" Terrence exclaimed excitedly as he checked his device while glancing around cautiously before turning back toward Kyra with renewed determination shining in his gaze. "We're one step closer." The final confrontation. The atmosphere in the small hotel room was thick with tension as Terrence and Kyra prepared for the confrontation that loomed ahead. They had escaped Zarek's clutches for now, but the threat still hung over them like a dark cloud. Terrence paced the room, his mind racing with thoughts of strategy and survival. "We need to find Jax and his crew," Terrence said, running a hand through his tousled hair. "They'll help us take down Zarek and get you out of this mess for good." Kyra nodded, her expression resolute. "I know they're loyal. If we can get to them before Zarek does, we might have a chance." "Let's not waste any time," Terrence replied, his heart pounding with determination. "We'll head to the docks where Jax said to meet him." As they stepped out of the hotel room, Terrence felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. They had come too far to turn back now. The streets of the market district were bustling with activity, but he couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked around every corner. "Stay close," he instructed Kyra as they navigated through the throng of alien species, each more bizarre than the last. The vibrant colors and sounds of the market were a stark contrast to the seriousness of their mission. "I will," she replied, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The bond between them had grown stronger through their shared experiences, and Terrence felt an unspoken understanding pass between them. As they approached the docks, Terrence's instincts kicked in. He scanned their surroundings for any signs of Zarek's men. The air was thick with tension, he could feel it in his bones. "There." Kyra pointed toward a figure standing near an old cargo ship, Jax, her friend and ally. He was tall and rugged, with a confident demeanor that immediately put Terrence at ease. "Kyra. Over here." Jax called out as they approached. "Thanks for coming," Kyra said breathlessly as they reached him. "We need your help, Zarek is still after us." Jax's expression turned serious as he glanced around cautiously. "I figured as much. I've been keeping an eye on things, Zarek's men are everywhere." "We need a plan," Terrence interjected, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can't let them catch us again." "I've got some intel," Jax replied, pulling out a small device that projected a holographic map of the area. "Zarek has set up a temporary base nearby, he's regrouping and planning his next move." "Then we hit him before he has a chance to strike," Kyra suggested fiercely. Jax nodded in agreement. "I can gather some of my crew, we'll need all hands on deck for this." "Let's move quickly," Terrence urged, glancing over his shoulder nervously. "We don't have much time." As Jax contacted his crew through the device, Terrence felt a sense of purpose wash over him. They were no longer just running from Zarek, they were ready to fight back. Moments later, Jax's crew arrived, a diverse group of individuals who shared one common goal, taking down Zarek. They exchanged quick introductions, each member bringing unique skills to the table. "All right," Jax said, rallying everyone together. "Here's the plan, we'll split into two teams, one to create a distraction while the other infiltrates Zarek's base." Terrence felt a surge of adrenaline at the thought of confronting Zarek head-on. "I want to be part of the infiltration team," he declared firmly. "I'm going with you," Kyra insisted without hesitation. Jax looked between them and nodded in understanding. "Fine by me, just be careful out there." With their plans set in motion, they moved swiftly through the shadows toward Zarek's temporary base, a dilapidated structure on the outskirts of the market district that had seen better days. As they approached their target, Terrence felt his heart race with anticipation. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for since their lives had been turned upside down. "Remember your roles," Jax whispered as they neared the entrance. "We create chaos to draw attention away from you two." "Understood," Terrence replied, exchanging a determined glance with Kyra. They slipped inside through a side entrance that Jax had scouted earlier, finding themselves in a dimly lit corridor filled with crates and equipment. The air was thick with tension as they moved cautiously through the space. "This way," Kyra whispered urgently as she led him deeper into the base. Terrence followed closely behind her, acutely aware of how their bodies brushed against each other in the narrow confines of the corridor, an electric connection that heightened his senses amidst their perilous situation. Suddenly, they heard voices approaching, a group of Zarek's men discussing their plans for capturing Kyra and dealing with Terrence once and for all. "They think they can just waltz in here and take what's mine," one of them sneered contemptuously. "We'll show them who runs this station," another replied angrily. Terrence exchanged worried glances with Kyra, they needed to act fast before they were discovered. "Let's take them out quietly," he suggested in a low voice. Kyra nodded in agreement as she focused her energy manipulation abilities, her hands glowing faintly as she prepared to create an illusion that would confuse their enemies. With swift precision, she unleashed her power, a shimmering wave that enveloped their surroundings and created ghostly images of themselves darting in various directions down the corridor. The guards fell for it entirely, they charged after the illusions while Terrence and Kyra slipped past unnoticed into another room filled with equipment and surveillance monitors. "This must be where Zarek is coordinating everything," Terrence said as he scanned the room filled with screens displaying various feeds from around the station. "We need to find something we can use against him," Kyra urged as she began searching through files on one of the terminals. Just then, an alarm blared throughout the base, a warning signal indicating that something was amiss. "They must have figured out our ruse," Terrence exclaimed urgently. "We need to hurry." Kyra worked quickly at the terminal while Terrence kept watch by peering through a small window that overlooked another corridor filled with guards rushing toward their location. "I found something," Kyra shouted suddenly, her eyes wide with excitement. "Blueprints for Zarek's operations, this shows all his supply routes. That could be crucial." Terrence replied eagerly as he leaned closer to see what she had discovered. Before they could celebrate their find, footsteps echoed ominously outside, the guards were closing in fast. "We have to go," Terrence urged as he grabbed Kyra's hand and pulled her toward an exit at the back of the room just as Zarek's men burst through the door behind them. They sprinted down another corridor filled with crates stacked high against walls while chaos erupted behind them, the sounds of shouting guards mixed with blaring alarms creating an atmosphere charged with urgency. "Keep moving," Terrence shouted as they dodged past obstacles blocking their path, adrenaline fueling every step taken toward freedom. As they reached an exit leading outside into open air, the sight before them took their breath away, a sprawling view of stars twinkling against deep blackness beyond. But there was no time for awe, they needed to regroup with Jax and his crew before Zarek caught up. "Over here." Kyra pointed toward a small maintenance hatch leading into another alleyway where shadows danced ominously under flickering lights above. They ducked inside just moments before Zarek's men rounded a corner, heart pounding wildly against his chest. "We made it." Terrence gasped breathlessly once safely hidden within darkness surrounding them both now. But even amidst relief, an unsettling feeling gnawed at him like hunger pangs. This wasn't over yet. Together, united by shared purpose, they would confront whatever challenges awaited ahead.